that's the Philly Godfather. He and Jeffrey Lurie have yachts because, those are all those sophisticated guys. Me, I'm just a robo kind of guy. Here's Philly Godfather. He rolls in here. Boy, I'll tell you something, man. I don't get this Reddick deal.
I'm speechless. I mean, what are they doing? What? I don't know. Other than the Elliott signing, re-signing Sweat, yeah, the move the needle hasn't moved at all. I mean, look at their odds. They're not making any noise. They're not making any noise.
I'd say this to you. Gardner Johnson, like you said, the Sweat, and you sign a guy in Bryce Huff who can't start in New York. You bring a guy, if you're New York, in who's had 4 years of 10+ sacks. Get this too. Godfather, this guy had 27 sacks for you. And if you're, I look, and I get it. Reddick and Bryce, they got limitations. Why didn't you at least upgrade the ability to do more? Play the run, pass rush. Maybe not to the level of Hassan, but get a better player. They got a lesser player.
Yeah, I know. I mean, if anything, I think the Jets' odds are going to drop a little bit. They're getting better. I think they're at 22-1 to win the whole thing. Aaron Rodgers is back. I think they got the best of the deal. The Eagles really haven't moved the needle, like I said. I don't know what Howie's doing. Smoke and mirrors here. Maybe he's trying to fool some people. But the guys that know what's really going on, this team hasn't gotten better.
I want to take a couple things away from that bizarre press conference that Jeffrey Lurie had the other day at the owner. It was bizarre to me. And how about this? He says this. He said that Nick's meeting went better than Doug's meeting on the direction of the team, and that was one of the reasons that they decided to move forward, was because Nick had a better meeting than we did. Isn't that code for this? If you don't accept these coordinator changes, you're going to be moved out the same way Doug was moved out.
Exactly. It's exactly what it is. I mean, he's a total yes man. Doug actually had the cojones to tell him what they needed to do to get better. And Nick's just sitting there, yes, boss, whatever you say, boss. And that's why he's still around.
Hey, man, I know that, get this, you must be one of the most miserable guys right now covering that NCAA tournament. I'll get to the tournament, man, because I'll tell you this. You know what? After Arizona went out, I'm done. I'm finished. I don't care what happens after this. I'll get to that here in a minute, but holy cow, man. And then you're like UNC. Why? At the end of the game? Why are you doing that? So I've got a couple questions here for you. Okay? I say that these things have to happen if the Eagles are going to have any hope at being a Super Bowl contender. Do you believe Hurts returns back to MVP form?
No. You got no center. Why? The center's gone. You got the rock star. He left the building. Kelsey ain't walking through those doors. People don't realize how important the center is. I love Jalen Hurts, and hopefully he gets his head on straight, and the shenanigans that were going on in the locker room between the players don't happen again this season. And you might see some guys run over and pick him up after he gets hit, where, late in the season you weren't seeing that on the football field.
Over under 14 games Barkley plays.
I say under. That offensive line, it worries me. It worries me.
Do you think he becomes a star this year in Philly?
Yeah, I think so. I like him a lot. I'm cheering for him. He's an unbelievable talent. He can catch the ball out the backfield. He can run the ball down your throat. You give him a little separation, he's gone. So, yeah, I think so.
Will Goddard play more than 12 and a half games?
Ooh. He hurt his arm last year. It was kind of like a fluke injury, right? That was the only injury he had last year?
Got a fluke injury every year since he's been with the Eagles. Every year he's missed, and it's added up to between 23 and 25% of his playing career.
They got more weapons on the field. Yeah, I think he plays more than 12 and a half games.
I made this point in the first hour. If Brock Bowers falls down to that 22,
yeah.
I mean, I think he is the best player in the draft. Some people would say Marvin Harrison Jr. is probably the best. But if that guy, and here's why, and someone's right that said this, here's why he will make a bigger impact. The linebacking cores in the NFL are not as good as the cornerbacks that are in this league. Oh, some of the most talented players on defense are at the corner position. An NFL team has at least one really good corner. You play teams in the NFL that don't have any linebackers, like the Eagles don't have any linebackers that are worth a shit. That position has become such a focal point for teams, and that's why you're seeing more teams that – look at the Laporte kid who up in Detroit, over 70 catches, over 700 yards. How do you pass on that? Would you seriously consider taking him in that 22 pick if Brock Bowers is there?
They got needs on defense. That's the problem. He's going to be a great NFL player. And if he's the best available at that, at that spot, you might look to take him. But
maybe you trade down when someone wants to take him. You trade down?
Yeah, you could do that too. Yeah, you could do that. Marvin Harrison Jr. is probably the best player. And then it's him. And then maybe, one of the quarterbacks, maybe like Drake May's pretty good, but he's going to go probably number 2. But yeah, I mean, it's a real possibility. He's a great player, great tight end.
Do you want to hear who the 4 linebackers are right now after this Reddick deal? Nolan Smith, Devin White, Nakobe Dean, and Bryce Huff.
25%. You run 25%.
Hey, what? I mean, where do you think you've upgraded that linebacking core?
You haven't. You really haven't. I mean, we talked about them. I mean, his numbers have dropped off dramatically since 2020. Dean, I don't know. You got one guy. That's it. 1 out of 4.
Can Davis be a star?
A big star, or a little star?
Well, he's already a big fella, but we'll say a big star.
Yeah, he'll be. I think he'll be all right. I think we'll be okay with him. They got so many needs on this team, and I keep repeating over and over. I know the guys don't want to hear it, but when you lose Jason Kelce, man, that's massive.
Who's Brandon Graham's replacement?
I don't know.
Nolan Smith?
No.
So he's not on the team yet.
You lose so much production on that line, man. It's getting scary. It's getting scary. Thank God they picked up Huff, but he's no guarantee. I mean, he
can't play the run.
Yeah, he can't stop the run. I mean, like we talked about this before. So if he regresses back to what he was, the norm, you play above the norm, you play below the norm, and then you got the norm. And the norm ain't that great for him.
Does James Bradbury have a bounce back year?
No. He's got to go. He's got to go. Come on. And then Howie's sticking up for him. Come on. Let's be honest, man. They got a lot of work to do. They're still very talented, but they're kind of top heavy on the offensive side. That defense is weak. Might be, one of the worst defensive backfields in the NFL. Thank God they picked up CJ, but he's no guarantee either. I mean, if he lost a step, then we're really in trouble off that injury.
What do you think the owner meant when he said that he wanted Jalen Hurts to be more authentic?
I got no clue. I mean, is
that code for a better leader?
I don't know. I mean, he's not the leader. I mean, we all know that. We saw what happened in the locker room. If anything, A.J. Brown's the most vocal guy on the team. Authentic. I got no clue. I don't know. I got no clue what he meant about that.
Hey,
he's talking in code to me. I mean, why? You're the owner of the team. Just be straightforward. I want him to be more authentic. Okay, a reporter should have been like, okay, what's that mean? They just let that go. Why would you let that go as a reporter?
I don't get it, man. I really don't. real quick, I'm going to move off of football here. I had Kurt Schilling on. Kurt Schilling, I asked him if he thought that the Phillies were a 100-win team. He said yes to you.
No. That's a lot of wins.
Yeah, I think they're a 95 win, 94, 93, somewhere in there.
I'll be lucky to get to 90 wins, man.
What? So you got the Braves winning the East again.
Yeah, it looks that way. I mean, but they keep starting off slow, and it kills you. You know, every year they start off slow, and they get hot, and the bats get going. There's no guarantee it's going to happen again if they start off slow again. So,
are they getting work today?
What's that?
Are the Eagles getting work? I mean, the Phillies getting work today?
I haven't even watched the game. I'm not even sure. I can check the screen.
I wouldn't be shocked if they're getting worked right now.
I know it was a low-scoring game early, but their bullpen's got issues again. You know, it's the same thing over and over again. But they got some of the best bats in baseball. They got some good leaders on that team. But again, the NL's getting tough. No, it's 2-2 in the eighth.
Okay. How about this? Let me go to the tournament here. Is this the most frustrating sporting event to gamble on?
No, we've had a great March Madness. We were right around 74%. And then last night I went 1-2. So it took us right to about 70% against the spread. I've been preaching for years that you can't bet the regular season like you bet March Madness. In March Madness, a weird phenomenon happens where the team that wins the game covers the spread. So if you think the underdog has no shot of winning the game outright, don't even bet on them because they're not going to cover the spread. And the favorites, they're either going to win the game and cover or they're going to lose outright. So that's the approach you got to have when you're handicapping these games. It's not easy, with that.
So interesting when a team like, I'll use for instance, a team like UNC takes on the Citadel. You don't bet that because if it's close, it's going to be a 1-point game, right? Or because it's just the chances of that happening are 1 in a million anyway. And for them, like you said, Carolina's not going to cover the spread on that. And so the only thing you'd be hoping is that you'd be throwing a blind faith bet that Citadel would upset them. And that's how you lose a lot of games. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you want to bet the dogs on the money line. So you get a better price. You get more of a return on your money, and you don't pay the juice. But you got to make sure they got a chance to beat that team. Like when we bet Texas A&M, we took them +9. I didn't think they could stay within the number. I actually thought they could beat Houston, and that game, was close. So if you don't think that that underdog can win the game outright, don't even bet them. Don't even bet them because they're not going to cover the spread. And it's been this year right around it's been over 80%. It's been happening. So you got to really pay attention. You got to do your homework. Got to do your research. But favorites were covering like crazy, and then last night you saw the dogs start coming in, and then we got some good games lined up next. So it's gonna be fun.
Why does UConn not get the national praise? Do you know if they win this national championship, this will be 6? That means they have more than Indiana. They have more than, I think the only teams that have more are Kentucky, UCLA. They'll have as many as Duke. If I'm not mistaken, they'll have 6. Indiana is at 5. They'll have more national titles than Kansas. Why doesn't UConn get the national praise? Is it because it's in stores or Big East? I mean, it has to be one of the most underrated programs in the country.
Yeah, and they got one of the best coaches in college basketball. And chances are they're going to be back in it again this year. I mean, they were number 1 or number 2 all season in most of the advanced power rankings. It was them in Houston. You see what they do to teams. They jump out, early on these teams. They got great defense. I mean, they're like the New England Patriots of college basketball the last 2 seasons. They're going to be hard to beat. And I really don't know why they don't get the praise. But, the SEC gets a lot of love, ACC. But I don't know.
Who do you have tonight?
I got futures on Purdue. I really need them, but the line's going against me a little bit. It opened up 4, went to 5, bounced back to 4.5 a little bit. But I think Purdue gets the job done. I mean, Gonzaga's been shooting lights out. They played Kansas. They shot 60% from the floor, 53% from 3-point line. That's not going to happen against a team like Purdue. Purdue's one of the best rebounding teams in college basketball. Should be a fun game, but I think Purdue's a little too strong for them. I like Purdue there. Creighton, Tennessee is going to be a great game. We got futures on it from the beginning of the season. I took Creighton at 25-1, Tennessee at 14-1. So we're sitting in a good position there. But again, at 3.5, 3, I think Tennessee's a little too strong for that team. I kind of like Tennessee there. What else is going on tonight? Marquette, they're a really, really solid team. NC State's looked pretty, but I think it's the end of the road for them. Marquette beats this team. I think the line's up to 7. It opened up 6. I still think there's some value if you lay 7 on Marquette. I think they're a tough team to beat also.
You like Gonzaga?
No, not against Purdue.
No, I mean,
they got one.
Gonzaga's another one of those programs that I would say this could be the best program in the country not to have won a national title.
Yeah, they've been there. And they got a great coach. They've been
Mark
there times. Yeah, but every time they stepped up this season, they lost. They lost to Purdue by 10. They lost to UConn by 13 earlier in the season. So anytime they stepped up in competition, they fell kind of flat. But again, it's a short line. It's only 5. There's a reason why the odds makers expect this to be a close game, but I don't. I think Purdue beats this team.
You still got UConn winning the whole thing?
On paper, they look to be, they look like they're the best team in college. I mean, how can you argue with that? You can't argue with the odds makers. I think they're even money now to win the whole thing. Best team in college basketball, unless they trip up and have a bad shooting night. They're going to be back in the national championship.
Well, it's going to be interesting. That's to say the least. Philly Godfather, we love you. Tell folks how they can find you.
Follow me on Twitter at Philly Godfather. Stop by the PhillyGodfather.com and go Birds, baby.
You got it. Philly Godfather, our good friend. Hit the like button. Keep it here, National Football Show.